I have a fantastic decision to tell you about that was made by a panel of judges in North Carolina. Now, it's just one decision, and it is a much broader problem, gerrymandering, than one decision can fix. But this is the right decision that was made, and that's what matters in this particular case. The way that Republicans drew the district lines in North Carolina does not, quote, permit voters to freely choose their representative, according to Superior Court decisions that have been filed. And the districts cannot remain drawn this way. The maps, according to this ruling in North Carolina, were specifically drawn, no surprise, we've known this for years, to maintain a Republican supermajority in the state legislature. This is what North Carolina Republicans are known for. This is what North Carolina Republicans have been doing and succeeding with for a very long time. Now, there's an interesting sort of legal circumstance here that's important to understand. You might remember that just a few months ago, the Supreme Court ruled that you cannot challenge partisan gerrymandering in federal court. And yet, here we have a Superior Court making this decision. But there is a rule in the North Carolina Constitution called the Free Elections Clause, which specifically says you cannot do partisan gerrymandering. Partisan gerrymandering, according to the North Carolina Constitution, is unconstitutional. And that is what led to this decision being made in North Carolina, even though conceivably if it had been appealed or attempted to be appealed up to the Supreme Court would not have taken up, given their prior decision in June. So the right decision in North Carolina, we know that this has been going on. What happens now with the districts in North Carolina? There is a deadline until September 18. Lawmakers will have to redraw new maps, which, if they are fairly redrawn, they could give Democrats a chance to actually do some damage in the North Carolina state legislature in 2020 and hopefully pick up some seats. If Democrats can pick up the majority in the North Carolina state legislature in November of 2020, then they will be in charge of drawing the maps after the 2020 census in 2021, which would be great. But again, this is where Democrats and Republicans, where left and right, are not the same. I have no interest in Democrats taking over the majority in the North Carolina state legislature in November of 2020, and then redrawing districts in a completely unfair way that benefits Democrats. Now, you could say it would be a just outcome because Republicans have done it for nearly the entire period between the 2010 and the 2020 census. Republicans in North Carolina deserve to have the lines redrawn in a way that favors Democrats instead of Republicans. We don't need to cheat to win. I just want fair maps. Fair maps are what I want, not differently unfair maps that now benefit Democrats. When it comes to a lot of these issues, I am not looking to reverse the structural advantage that Republicans have unfairly created for themselves and create it for the left. I just want fair maps because I know that with fair maps and voter turnout, meaning everybody's allowed to vote who wants to vote and their votes are counted, I know that that's enough for us to win. However, it's completely plausible that the maps that are redrawn in North Carolina between now and September 18th will simply be slightly less obviously unfair to Democrats, but still heavily slanted towards Republicans. That's a realistic possibility. One of the things about gerrymandering is that there's a huge incentive to do it, even if it later is going to be tossed out, because people who were elected under gerrymandered districts don't lose their seats if the districts are found to have been gerrymandered and the map has to be changed. Your election under a gerrymandered map doesn't become null and void if the district maps are later determined to be unconstitutional, which is why they keep doing it. You have a census in 2010. The next year, they draw bonkers, crazy districts. They win seats. They maintain a supermajority. Then they can actually push what they want in terms of bills becoming law for one election, for two elections, whatever. Meanwhile, Democrats have to fight them in court on the way the districts were drawn. And then if a few years later, the districts end up being tossed out, you picked up the seats, the winners were there, they got to pass bills, they got to make laws, and then you get to keep those seats even if the judge says that the districts ultimately have to be redrawn. This is the evil genius of partisan gerrymandering. Even if you later lose, The other side has to spend a ton of time and money fighting the drawing of the districts, and you get to keep all of those seats that the gerrymandering helped you win in the first place. That's why it's so pernicious. This is why the census matters so much, and this is why we need there are models. There are endless academicians who have put together models for how you should draw districts. Computers can do it. You don't need people saying, let's shift this around and include this weird protuberance in this district because it's advantageous. It's completely unnecessary. This is actually something that computers can do very well and very fairly. As Trump says, it's amazing what even kids like Barron Trump are doing with computers these days. We don't need partisan gerrymandering. We don't even need partisan involvement in drawing these districts anymore. So the right decision in North Carolina, to some extent, too little too late, because Republicans in North Carolina have gotten so much out of the way they've drawn these districts over the last several election cycles. Make sure you are following The David Pakman Show on Instagram at David Pakman Show. A lot of funny stuff there. And while you're on Instagram, make sure you follow me at david.pakman. We will take a quick break. And yes, coming up next, we will talk about Donald Trump's Sharpie Gate.